My beloved child, I know there is still a wound inside you that has not fully healed. A quiet ache that returns when you remember certain names, certain faces, certain promises that were broken. You still carry confusion about why some people disappeared from your life the way they did. You still replay conversations in your mind, wondering what you could have done differently. Part of you still struggles to understand how people who once claimed they loved you could suddenly become distant, cold, or absent. And because of that pain, you started believing something dangerous. You started believing their leaving meant you were not enough. But my child, their departure was never proof of your lack of worth. It was proof that your season was changing. You were never abandoned. You were being redirected. There are people who were assigned only to one chapter of your journey. They were never meant to walk beside you forever. Some connections were temporary, even though your heart wanted permanence. Some relationships existed only to teach lessons your spirit needed before entering the next stage of your life. But because your heart loved deeply, you mistook temporary people for permanent destiny. And when they left, it shattered something inside you. I know how deeply it hurt. I saw the nights when you questioned your value after being rejected. I saw you blaming yourself for things you could not control. I saw how betrayal damaged your confidence and made you afraid to trust again. You wondered why people changed. You wondered why loyalty disappeared. You wondered why those you prayed for sometimes became the very source of your pain. But listen carefully now, my beloved. Not everyone who leaves your life is a loss. Some departures are divine separation. Some endings are acts of protection. Some people must be removed because they cannot follow you into the future I prepared for you. Their presence would have delayed your healing. Their influence would have distracted your calling. Their attachment would have kept you emotionally tied to a version of yourself I am asking you to outgrow. The pain came because you could only see the ending, but heaven could already see the future beyond it. Their exit created space for your calling, space for your healing, space for your peace, space for your transformation. You thought losing them meant your life was falling apart. But slowly, you are beginning to realize certain people were connected more to your wounds than to your destiny. Some relationships survived only because you were emotionally afraid of being alone. Some people remained close only because you kept shrinking yourself to keep them comfortable. But my beloved child, I did not create you to spend your life begging for love, chasing validation, or abandoning your true self to maintain relationships that drained your spirit. I created you for something deeper, healthier, holier. And sometimes before I can bring the right people into your life, I must first remove those who continuously disturb your peace. I know you still miss some of them. I know certain memories still make your heart ache. And I know part of you still wishes things could have ended differently. But if you could fully see what I protected you from, your tears would begin turning into gratitude, because some people were slowly breaking your confidence while pretending to care for you. Some were feeding your insecurity. Some were attached to your pain but uncomfortable with your growth. Some loved the wounded version of you because the healed version would no longer depend on them. And my beloved, you cannot step fully into your purpose while remaining chained to environments that constantly pull your spirit backward. So I intervened, quietly, painfully, lovingly, not to destroy your heart, but to save your future. All things work together for good to those who love God. Romans 8:28. Even this heartbreak, my child, even this disappointment, even this separation, I know it did not feel good while it was happening. In fact, some endings nearly broke you emotionally. There were moments you genuinely thought you would never recover from certain betrayals. The silence after people left felt unbearable. The loneliness that followed made you question everything. But what you called abandonment was often divine repositioning, because the path ahead required a different environment. Different influences, different voices around your spirit. The version of you I am raising up now cannot continue surviving in spaces that constantly diminish your worth. You have spent too much time trying to earn love from emotionally unavailable people. Too much time over-explaining your heart to those determined to misunderstand you. Too much time carrying relationships alone while pretending the imbalance did not hurt you. And slowly, exhaustion began consuming your spirit. That is why some separations became necessary. Not because you failed, not because you were unlovable, but because heaven saw your value even when others did not. Listen closely now, this next truth matters deeply. Some people left because they were connected to your old season, not your future season. Their assignment in your life expired when your transformation began. And the more you changed internally, the more uncomfortable certain people became around you. Your healing exposed their unhealthy patterns. Your growth challenged their control. Your awakening threatened the version of you they had grown used to. So distance appeared. Conflict surfaced. Misunderstanding increased. And eventually, separation happened. You thought the separation meant destruction, but often separation is where healing finally begins. My beloved child, you cannot fully receive new blessings while clinging desperately to what I already removed. You cannot move forward while continuously staring backward at closed doors. Some endings hurt because you loved sincerely, but sincere love does not always mean permanent assignment. There are people who walk with you for a season, and there are people assigned to walk with you into destiny. Not everyone is the same, and now, slowly, I am teaching your spirit the difference. I know forgiveness still feels difficult for you sometimes. Part of your heart still carries disappointment. Certain wounds still feel unfair. But I do not want bitterness to poison the future I am preparing for you. Release the anger, release the need for revenge. Release the exhausting desire to fully understand why people behaved the way they did. Some answers will never bring peace, but my presence will. Trust me with the pieces you still do not understand. Because one day you will look back and realize that some of the most painful endings in your life became the very turning points that led you toward healing purpose, clarity, and deeper peace. You survived their leaving, and now you are becoming stronger because of it. But there is something even deeper happening beneath the surface of your life right now. Because the next part will reveal why the greatest battle was never only around you, it was happening inside your own mind. My beloved child, there is a battle you have been fighting that nobody else fully sees. A quiet war, a hidden pressure, a constant tension inside your own mind. And for a long time, you believed every fearful thought was simply part of who you are. You believed the anxiety was your identity. You believed the overthinking was normal. You believed the heaviness inside your spirit meant something was wrong with you. But listen carefully now, because what I am about to reveal will change the way you see yourself forever. Not every voice in your head belongs to you. There are thoughts that entered your mind without coming from your true spirit. There are fears that attach themselves to your heart through pain, disappointment, betrayal, and exhaustion. There are lies that repeated themselves so often you eventually accepted them as truth. But they were never my voice. My child, I need you to understand something deeply. I do not speak to you through constant fear. I do not condemn you with hopelessness. I do not whisper worthlessness into your spirit. I do not fill your mind with endless anxiety, confusion, and torment. That voice telling you that you are not enough. That voice convincing you nothing will ever change. That voice replaying your failures over and over again. That voice making you feel unloved, forgotten, unwanted, or permanently broken. That is not how I speak to my children. Yet for so long you listened to those voices until they became louder than my truth. And slowly, without realizing it, your peace began disappearing. Something hidden has been targeting your peace. The enemy understood something about you before you fully understood it yourself. He recognized the potential within you. He recognized the calling over your life. He recognized the strength your spirit would eventually carry. And because of that, the attack focused heavily on your mind. Because if your thoughts could be controlled, your destiny could be delayed. If your confidence could be weakened, your purpose could remain buried. If fear could dominate your thinking, you would remain trapped in survival instead of stepping into the future prepared for you. So the warfare intensified quietly, not always around you, but within you. Fear, overthinking, self-doubt, mental exhaustion, constant worry, emotional heaviness, the endless replaying of painful memories, the fear of rejection, the fear of failure, the fear that nobody truly loves you, the fear that your life will never improve. My beloved child, these attacks did not begin yesterday. Some started years ago through wounds you never fully healed from. Certain painful experiences opened doors to deep insecurity. Betrayal planted seeds of distrust. Rejection created fear of abandonment. Disappointment created anxiety about the future. And over time, those wounds slowly shaped the way you thought about yourself. You became harsh toward your own heart. You questioned your value constantly. You expected disappointment before good things even arrived. You prepared yourself for rejection before people had the chance to love you properly. You became exhausted from fighting battles inside your mind every single day. And the hardest part was this: most people around you never realized how intense the battle truly became. They saw your outer appearance, but they did not see the storm inside your thoughts. They did not see the silent panic attacks, the emotional exhaustion, the nights where your own mind became too loud to escape, the moments you smiled publicly while privately feeling emotionally shattered. But I saw it all, and I never stopped fighting for you. For God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind. 2 Timothy 1:7. Read that carefully, my beloved. Fear was never the inheritance I intended for you. Torment was never your identity. Confusion was never meant to rule your thoughts. You were created for peace, for clarity, for strength, for spiritual authority. But the enemy understood that if your identity could be distorted, your future could remain hidden from you. So he attacked your thoughts repeatedly. He wanted you to believe your weakness was permanent. He wanted you to see yourself through the lens of your wounds instead of through my love. He wanted your anxiety to become so overwhelming that you stopped believing healing was possible. But now the attack is losing power. Do you know why? Because you are beginning to recognize the difference between fear and truth. You are beginning to notice which thoughts produce peace and which thoughts produce torment. My voice brings clarity, fear brings confusion. My presence brings peace, fear brings panic. My truth strengthens your spirit. Fear drains your strength completely. The more you stay close to me, the more clearly you will begin recognizing these differences. Listen closely now. This next part matters deeply. Some of the thoughts you accepted about yourself were never true to begin with. You are not weak because you cried. You are not broken because you struggled. You are not forgotten because you experienced delay. You are not unworthy because certain people rejected you. And you are not failing simply because healing takes time. My beloved child, healing the mind is often a slow and sacred process. I know you sometimes become frustrated with yourself because certain fears still return unexpectedly. Some wounds still trigger anxiety. Some painful memories still echo loudly inside your thoughts. But do not confuse ongoing healing with permanent defeat. You are recovering from battles that deeply affected your spirit, and recovery takes gentleness, patience, grace. That is why I keep calling you closer to me, not to condemn you for struggling, but to restore the parts of your heart fear tried to steal. Every moment you choose hope instead of despair, the darkness loses power. Every time you keep going, despite emotional exhaustion, fear weakens further. Every prayer whispered through tears shakes chains you cannot even see. You think nothing is happening during those quiet moments. But heaven sees warfare breaking in your favor. The enemy attacked your mind because he feared who you are becoming. He recognized that once your thinking changes, your life will begin changing too. Once you stop agreeing with fear, your confidence will return. Once you stop identifying with your wounds, your calling will awaken. Once you stop believing the lies spoken over your life, your spirit will finally breathe freely again. And that transformation has already begun. Slowly, quietly, deep within your spirit. You may still feel tired sometimes. You may still battle anxious thoughts occasionally. But something inside you is waking up now. A deeper discernment, a deeper awareness, a deeper strength. You are no longer blindly believing every fearful thought that enters your mind. Now you are questioning the darkness instead of automatically agreeing with it. That matters more than you realize, because the greatest breakthrough often begins the moment you stop calling the lies truth. My beloved child, the war against your mind will not define your future. Your healing will. And soon, you will understand why all these battles were also preparing you for another assignment, far greater than your own survival, because the next part will reveal how I am using your pain to break generational cycles that existed long before you were born. My beloved child, there is something about your life you have not fully understood yet. Your struggle was never only about you. The battles you faced did not begin entirely with your own choices. Some burdens were already moving through your family long before you were born. Certain patterns repeated themselves quietly across generations. Fear passed from one wounded heart to another. Silence became inherited. Brokenness traveled through relationships. Pain taught pain. Wounded people unknowingly wounded others. And without realizing it, you entered a world already carrying the weight of battles you did not create. You saw addiction destroy peace. You saw anger fracture love. You saw fear controlling decisions. You saw emotional distance, manipulation, abandonment, poverty thinking, constant anxiety, cycles of shame, cycles of self-destruction, cycles of people surviving but never truly healing. And for many years, my child, you thought those patterns would continue forever. Sometimes you even feared you would become exactly what hurt you. But listen carefully now, because this truth is sacred. You were not born to continue the cycle. You were born to break it. The reason your journey has felt heavier than others at times is because your spirit carries an assignment larger than your own comfort. You are not simply surviving for yourself. Heaven has been preparing you to become the interruption to generations of hidden pain. That is why your battles became so intense. That is why the warfare against your mind increased. That is why discouragement attacked your identity so strongly. Because once one person in a family begins healing deeply, the entire direction of future generations can change. And the enemy feared what would happen if you finally discovered who you truly are. My beloved child, there were moments you felt different from those around you. You noticed things others ignored. You questioned unhealthy patterns others accepted. Your spirit longed for peace even when chaos became normal around you. That was not weakness, that was awakening. I placed something inside you that refused to fully settle inside brokenness. Even when you were hurting, even when you felt lost, even when fear clouded your thinking, something deep inside you kept searching for healing, truth, peace, and meaning. That was my hand upon your life. You were chosen to see beyond the pain, chosen to desire something healthier, chosen to become the beginning of a new story. But my child, carrying this assignment has not been easy, because cycle breakers often feel alone before they feel understood. You became the one who questioned unhealthy behavior while others stayed silent. You became the one who carried emotional burdens nobody talked about openly. You became the one trying to heal wounds people before you simply ignored or buried. And sometimes that journey exhausted your spirit. Sometimes you wondered why you felt so emotionally different from others around you. Sometimes you questioned why certain environments drained you so deeply. Sometimes you felt guilty for wanting distance from patterns that continuously harmed your peace. But listen carefully now. Wanting healing does not make you disloyal. Wanting peace does not make you selfish. Wanting emotional health does not make you weak. It means your spirit recognizes it was created for more than survival. You were born to end what hurt your family, not through hatred, not through pride, but through healing, through wisdom, through forgiveness, through transformation. My beloved child, do not underestimate the importance of your healing journey. The inner work happening inside your spirit right now reaches far beyond your own life. Every unhealthy pattern you refuse to continue changes the future for those connected to you. Every moment you choose peace over chaos, truth over denial, healing over bitterness, you weaken cycles that existed long before your arrival. And heaven sees every step to bestow on them a crown of beauty instead of ashes. Isaiah 61:3. Do you understand what that means, my beloved? Ashes represent destruction, pain, loss, generational sorrow. But I specialize in transforming ashes into beauty. I restore what generations believed was permanently broken. I heal what families stopped talking about. I bring light into places where silence ruled for years, and that restoration is beginning through you. Not because you are perfect, but because you were willing to keep seeking me even through your pain. My child, many before you survived through emotional numbness because healing felt impossible to them. But I am awakening something different inside you. You are becoming more aware of what damages your peace, more aware of what feeds fear, more aware of relationships and environments that pull your spirit away from life. This awareness matters deeply because transformation begins with recognition, and now your eyes are opening. Slowly, you are beginning to understand that not every inherited pattern deserves to continue into your future. The fear stops with you. The constant self-hatred stops with you. The emotional silence stops with you. The belief that love must always hurt stops with you. The cycle of pretending everything is fine while suffering internally stops with you. My beloved child, there will still be moments when old patterns try to pull you backward. Familiar pain often feels comfortable because it has existed for so long. Healing can feel unfamiliar at first. Peace can even feel strange after years of emotional survival. But do not return to what I am healing you from. The old cycles may call your name, but your future is calling louder. Listen closely now. This next truth matters deeply. The reason your life has carried such intense spiritual pressure is because your breakthrough affects more than only yourself. Once healing fully takes root inside you, others around you will begin changing too. Your courage will inspire hidden healing in others. Your honesty will give people permission to confront their own pain. Your peace will become evidence that transformation is possible. That is why heaven kept protecting you even when you felt weak. Your story carries purpose. Your survival carries purpose. Even your tears carried purpose. Nothing about your journey has been meaningless. And although you still have healing ahead of you, do not overlook how far I have already brought you. The version of you listening right now is already stronger, wiser, and more spiritually awake than the version who first entered those dark seasons. You survived battles that were meant to silence your future, but you are still here, still breathing, still searching for truth, still listening for my voice. That matters more than you realize. Because the very fact that you are still seeking healing proves the darkness never fully conquered your spirit. And now, my beloved child, another season is beginning quietly inside you. A season where the loneliness, silence, and isolation that once confused you will finally start making sense. Because the next part will reveal why your silent season was never punishment. It was training. My beloved child, I know the silence confused you. There were seasons where everything became quiet at once. Certain friendships faded, opportunities slowed down, conversations became fewer, Even your own spirit sometimes felt isolated in ways you could not explain. You wondered why life suddenly felt so empty. You wondered why the excitement disappeared. You wondered why I seemed quieter than before. And slowly, the loneliness began making you question yourself. But listen carefully now, because what felt like abandonment was actually preparation. The silence was training, not punishment. My beloved, there are things I can only teach a soul in hidden seasons. There are strengths that can only develop in quiet places where distractions disappear. The world taught you to constantly seek noise, movement, validation, and attention. But I needed to bring you into stillness so your spirit could finally hear me clearly again. That is why certain distractions had to be removed. That is why some relationships faded away. That is why certain doors closed unexpectedly, because your spirit was becoming too surrounded by noise to recognize my voice. And the deeper your calling became, the more necessary the silence became also. I know those seasons felt uncomfortable, sometimes deeply painful. There were nights you felt emotionally isolated even while surrounded by people. There were moments you questioned why nobody seemed to fully understand what was happening inside you. You missed the old version of life, even though you knew it was no longer healthy for your spirit. You felt caught between who you used to be and who you were becoming, and that in-between place exhausted you. But my beloved child, transformation often happens in hidden places before it becomes visible publicly. Seeds grow underground before anyone sees the fruit, and during your silent season, I was growing something inside you that could not develop through comfort alone. Spiritual endurance, discernment, inner strength, deeper dependence on me. You were learning how to survive without constant external reassurance. You were learning how to hear my whisper above the noise of fear. You were learning how to stand emotionally even when nobody around you fully understood your journey. That training mattered deeply, because the future ahead of you requires a stronger spirit than the past version of yourself carried. Be still and know that I am God. Psalm 46:10. Stillness frightened you at first, because silence often exposes what distractions were covering up. When the noise faded, unresolved wounds surfaced. Hidden fears became louder. Loneliness became harder to ignore. You suddenly became aware of emotional exhaustion you had buried beneath constant busyness. And for a while, it felt overwhelming. But my child, the silence was revealing what needed healing. Not to shame you, but to restore you. Some of the deepest healing in your life began when you finally stopped running from your own heart. In the stillness, I began uncovering fears you carried for years. I exposed unhealthy attachments. I revealed where your identity depended too heavily on people's approval. I showed you how much anxiety had quietly controlled your decisions. And although the process felt painful, it was necessary, because I do not heal what remains hidden. Listen closely now. This next part matters deeply. Soon you will understand why God removed distractions. Certain people were distracting your spirit from growth. Certain environments kept pulling you backward emotionally. Certain habits numbed your pain temporarily while quietly delaying your healing. And because I love you too much to leave you trapped there forever, I began separating you from the noise. Not to isolate you from love, but to reconnect you with truth. My beloved child, there were moments during the silent season when you thought you were losing everything. But often, you were only losing what could no longer go where I am taking you. The old distractions could not enter your next season. The old coping mechanisms could not sustain your future calling. The old emotional dependencies could not survive where your spirit is headed now. So the silence became necessary, because silence forces transformation. And although you resisted it at times, your spirit slowly began changing inside those quiet places. You became more reflective, more discerning, more emotionally aware. You started recognizing which voices drained your peace. You began valuing authenticity more than shallow connection. You stopped craving constant validation the way you once did. And without fully realizing it, Your inner world became stronger. The world may have seen isolation, but heaven saw training. Every lonely prayer strengthened your spirit. Every silent night built endurance. Every hidden battle increased your discernment. Even your tears during that season carried purpose. Nothing about your isolation was meaningless. I know you sometimes became frustrated because progress felt invisible. You expected dramatic changes, but instead, transformation happened slowly, quietly, deeply beneath the surface. That is often how I work, my beloved. The strongest foundations are built where nobody sees them, and your foundation was being rebuilt carefully. Because I am preparing you for stability, not temporary excitement. Temporary emotions fade quickly, but spiritual endurance remains. That is why your silent season lasted longer than you expected. I was not only changing your circumstances, I was reshaping your inner life, teaching you how to remain steady, teaching you how to hear my voice clearly, teaching you how to find peace that does not depend on external situations. And now, little by little, you are beginning to notice the difference. Things that once controlled your emotions no longer hold the same power. Certain distractions no longer satisfy your spirit. Some relationships no longer feel aligned with your growth. You are changing internally, even if others cannot fully see it yet. My beloved child, do not despise the season that strengthened you. One day, you will look back and realize the quiet seasons protected you from becoming dependent on temporary things. The isolation forced you to discover who you truly were, beneath the expectations, noise, and emotional pressure surrounding you. You are becoming spiritually stronger than you realize. Not louder, not harder, but deeper, calmer, wiser, more rooted in truth. And although the silence once felt unbearable, it is now producing peace inside you that chaos could never create. If this message is speaking to your spirit, type, "I trust you, God." Because your spirit is beginning to recognize something important now. The silence was never evidence that I left you. It was evidence that I was working deeply within you. You were hidden for a reason, protected for a reason, separated for a reason. And soon, my beloved, you will begin seeing why heaven allowed you to walk through such intense hidden battles. Because the next part will reveal something shocking. You survived dangers you never even knew existed, because I was fighting battles for you behind the scenes the entire time.